And another question from Kenna. She's getting her money's worth tonight. One more question. Barring any physical limitation, what are some of the best exercises, drills, stretches to improve stride length, i.e. to the rear or during toe off? And I think you have probably the most complete library online of running sports essentials and drills. So tell her which one she should look for in the course.
Absolutely, Ken. Just on one more point on your previous question, I would definitely look at the physiological numbers as well, especially at the velocity numbers. So their velocity at VO2 max and their velocity at lactate threshold. That would count for a lot as opposed to just looking at VO2 max or lactate threshold. So to get on to your next question, just prompt me again quickly, Sam, just one word, what that next question was.
Increasing, what's the best exercise, drill, or stretches to improve stride length? To the rear or during toe off?
All right, that's good. So again, you have to look at a range of motion and then coordination and coordination ability skills. So from a range of motion perspective, any of the active release type stretches where you're using the antagonistic or the opposite muscle to extend the tissue on the front side. So in other words, that lunge position, psoas rectus femoris stretch, so any stretches that have them down on the ground in a lunge position. If you want to include the psoas, would have their arms up above their heads and twisting away, and then using the glute muscle. The major part of that is pinching the glute muscle to extend the ability to extend their hips more, and then also either a lying down, which is a very effective one, or a standing rectus femoris stretch, in other words, a high quad stretch. But again, the primary factor in that high quad stretch would be pinching the glute. Then from a more dynamic perspective would be leg swings or any of the walking or running drills that involve a kickback. So if you're thinking of hip extension, the best drill there from a perambulatory fashion would be a walking drill where they're lifting up the entire leg behind them when it's slightly cocked, so the knee is slightly bent. And then one of the king of all drills is the leg swing, where they're putting their heel down on the ground, supporting themselves, against a wall or a fence or something like that, and then swinging the leg back in a semi-extended fashion and not rotating the pelvis. So they lock the pelvis down and the leg runs up against the resistance from the front of the hip. So those leg swings. And as Sam said, there are a number of videos that I've posted on YouTube with that, and then that's extensively covered in the course as well.
Okay. Yeah, Bobby, Kenna has one more question. So I'm just going to tell Kenna that she needs to not only consider your course, but maybe the mastermind group, where she gets in and gets to do private calls with you once a week, because she'll probably put you through your paces on answering all her questions. But
yeah, and she might also have cornered the market on the sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe send her 2 pair. One more. She said, how do you feel about 2-a-day run workouts for high-level triathletes or pure runners, age groupers versus elites, and effectiveness and guidelines for that?
I think I will answer that question, but I think Kevin will also be able to give us some good insight into his progression that we worked on with 2-a-days. So to look at 2-a-days, one of the baseline things that I work with are the athlete's recovery profile. So if the athlete can recover sufficiently in a 5-hour window or more to be able to run twice a day without any residual soreness or change in gait or loss of mechanical form, then 2-a-days are definitely indicated. With athletes that are new to running, I also like 2-a-days, but let's say they were going to run a half an hour, then I would have 2 15-minute runs or 2 20-minute runs. So in other words, frequency makes skill, frequency creates feel. Just like a swim coach doesn't like their swimmers to be away from the water for much more than 24 hours, so too, if you want to develop good run feel and you don't come from a running background, the more frequently you can run, the better. So you don't need to move up your weekly volume necessarily, but you do need to move your frequency up in a week. So very often, it's not the overall mileage that makes for a good runner in triathlon, it's the frequency of runs that they do. And so I'm a big believer of stimulating the system quite often, because the weekend warriors really struggle with that, is they do all this work on the weekend, and then they take 2 or 3 days to recover from that. And so gradually transitioning runners to a 2 a day if they're young enough to do so, or every day if they're older runners and they less skilled runners, is a very good idea.
Okay.